The date is August 29th, 1988. The hallowed halls of Madison Square Garden in New York City are buzzing, a cauldron of roaring humanity still basking in the afterglow of villainous victory at the inaugural SummerSlam. And for one man, the behemoth known as the Big Boss Man, the night feels like the precipice of something monumental. Just moments ago, before a captivated audience, he had dismantled Koko B Ware with a chilling display of power. Slick, his manager, a figure of sartorial splendor and unctuous charm, prowled at ringside, his voice a non-stop soundtrack that underscored the dominance of his charge. The Boss Man, a corrections officer turned wrestling enforcer, was a spectacle of raw force, a mountain of a man who moved with surprising agility. The decisive Boss Man slam spoke of a confidence bordering on arrogance, the kind of swagger that often precedes a meteoric rise. Surely this was it. An Intercontinental Championship run was on the horizon. The landscape of the World Wrestling Federation seemed ripe for his brand of imposing justice. But the championship gold never materialized during this iconic initial run in the company. Years would pass, a decade in fact, before the Big Boss Man would taste title glory in the Federation, clutching the hardcore and tag team championships in a vastly different era. What happened to that seemingly inevitable trajectory in the Golden Age? Why did a man so physically dominant, so captivating in his heel persona, never ascend to the championship echelon under the bright lights of the late 80s and early 90s World Wrestling Federation? Was it merely a matter of creative decisions, the capricious winds of professional wrestling fate? Or was there a more insidious force at play, a shadow lurking behind the flamboyant suits and slicked-back hair of his manager? Could it be that Slick, the Doctor of Style, the self-proclaimed purveyor of wrestling talent, was in reality a harbinger of misfortune, a walking, talking curse upon the careers of those who dared to align themselves with him? Consider the roster of wrestlers who fell under Slick's dubious guidance. A rogues gallery of imposing figures and undeniable talent, yet a collection of careers that, under his stewardship, largely failed to reach their projected heights, often marked by peculiar turns and ultimately falling short of championship glory during their time with him. It's a pattern, a disquieting consistency that begs the question, was Slick the kiss of death for wrestling aspirations? To unravel this mystery, we turn to Kenneth Wayne Johnson, the man beneath the swagger. Born in 1957 and adopted by wrestler Rufus R. Jones, the business was in his veins from the start. He first cut his teeth in Texas All-Star Wrestling, managing Mad Max and Lord Humongous, before Kansas City's Central States Territory, where the transformation into Slick, the Doctor of Style, truly took hold. Surrounded by capable talent, Slick seemed poised for success. Yet even there, titles never came. His partnership with Butch Reed ended in a cage match defeat, a bitter exit that foreshadowed a strange truth. Wrestlers under Slick's wing rarely reached the heights they seemed destined for. The bright lights of the World Wrestling Federation beckoned in August 1986, bringing Slick and Butch Reed to a national stage. Soon after his arrival, Slick orchestrated a shrewd power play, buying a half interest in the stable of the legendary, albeit ailing, classy Freddie Blassie. As Blassie's health waned, Slick seamlessly assumed full managerial control, inheriting the contracts of established heels like Nikolai Volkov and the Iron Sheik. It was during this period that the perplexing pattern began to solidify in the minds of those who paid close attention. Volkov and the Iron Sheik had indeed tasted tag team glory in 1985, a reign that cemented their place in wrestling history. But under Slick's management, that championship pedigree never resurfaced. In May 1987, a mere 2 months after their appearance at WrestleMania 3, a scandal erupted that would irrevocably alter the trajectory of the Iron Sheik's career. Arrested alongside hacksaw Jim Duggan for possession of cocaine, the incident shattered the illusion of kayfabe and exposed the behind-the-scenes realities of professional wrestling. The Iron Sheik was promptly fired, his momentum destroyed. Did Slick's presence somehow contribute to this downfall? An indirect curse, perhaps, where association with him led to unforeseen calamities. Slick's most prominent pairing came with the formation of the Twin Towers, the monstrous Akeem and the aforementioned Big Boss Man. This colossal duo became a main event attraction. their imposing presence a formidable obstacle for even the top babyfaces like Hulk Hogan and world champion Macho Man Randy Savage. The Twin Towers seemed destined for tag team gold, their size and power an undeniable advantage. Yet they never reached that pinnacle. The one-man gang had arrived in the Federation as a menacing heel, a destructive force, but his transformation into the cartoonish Akeem the African Dream, a character often seen as a caricature rather than an elevation, coincided with his alliance with Slick. While he reached the main event scene, championship glory remained elusive. Later in life, George Gray, the man behind Akeem, faced significant hardship, including the devastating Louisiana floods of 2016, forcing him to seek support through a GoFundMe campaign. Was this a final, tragic manifestation of the Slick curse, a life touched by misfortune after his association with the Doctor of Style? And let us go back to Butch Reed, the Natural, who had arrived in the Federation with considerable buzz, a powerfully built athlete with a seemingly bright future. Under Slick's management, however, that potential stagnated. He never sniffed a championship opportunity, his tenure largely remembered for his bleached blonde hair rather than any significant in-ring accomplishments. A telling anecdote is that on the June 13, 1987 episode of Superstars, Butch Reed was reportedly slated to defeat Ricky the Dragon Steamboat for the Intercontinental Championship. But he was a no-show, the title instead going to the Honky Tonk Man. What prevented Reed from seizing this golden opportunity? Was it simply a personal failing, or was it the invisible hand of the Slick curse snatching away a moment of potential triumph? Hercules, though best remembered for his time under Bobby the Brain Heenan, had a brief stint with Slick in 1986 before being sold to Heenan in a storyline framed as a financial transaction. Despite his imposing physique and steady mid-card presence, he never managed to capture a championship, falling short of the heights many had once predicted for him. His respectable yet unfulfilled career, coupled with his tragic passing at just 47 years old, raises the unsettling question of whether his early connection to Slick was yet another sign of the so-called curse that seemed to follow the Doctor of Style's protégés. Kamala, the Ugandan giant, was brought into the Federation as a terrifying, uncontrollable monster heel. Managed by Slick, he was presented as a fearsome adversary, yet his role often seemed to be that of a stepping stone for established or rising stars. Championship gold never came his way. Like Akeem, Kamala, portrayed by James Harris, would later face significant financial and health struggles, reportedly underpaid during his time in the Federation. Could this post-wrestling hardship be another symptom of the Slick curse, a pattern of misfortune extending beyond the squared circle? Rick Martel, the model, a charismatic and undeniably talented performer, joined forces with Slick during his heel run. Despite previous championship success in the American Wrestling Association and a three-time Federation Tag Team Champion before aligning with Slick, Martel never held singles gold under the Doctor of Style's tutelage. His model persona, while entertaining, kept him firmly entrenched in the mid-card, never quite reaching the main event status many believe his talent warranted. The Slick curse seemingly prevented even established champions from reaching new heights. The Warlord, a powerhouse managed by Slick after the dissolution of the Powers of Pain, was given a new look, and his imposing physique and intimidating presence suggested a potential run with a major title. Yet, like so many others under Slick's management, he never captured any championship gold, his career largely fading after the early 1990s. The curse seemed to persist, even with performers specifically chosen to be dominant forces. Finally, there was Power and Glory, the flashy tag team comprised of Hercules and Paul Roma. Slick managed these two impressive athletes in 1990, and their debut saw a memorable attack on the Rockers, promising a significant impact on the tag team division. They possessed good chemistry and a unique finishing maneuver. Yet, despite their potential, Power and Glory never captured the tag team championship. Their role, like many of Slick's clients, seemed to be to elevate other teams. Their dismantling at WrestleMania 7 in a mere 59 seconds at the hands of the Legion of Doom served as a stark illustration of their ultimately limited trajectory under Slick's guidance. They were built up only to be decisively torn down, a recurring theme in the careers of those managed by Slick. In November 1991, Slick took an extended leave of absence after being power-slammed by Davey Boy Smith. He returned a month later with a drastically different persona. Reverend Slick, a born-again Christian who denounced his past shady dealings and sought to spread a message of positivity. This transformation mirrored Kenneth Johnson's own real-life faith. He offered uplifting sermons on Federation programming and even joined the commentary team on primetime wrestling. His most notable storyline during this period involved taking Kamala under his wing, attempting to instill self-respect in the Ugandan giant. While this new chapter in Slick's career was a fascinating departure, it did little to dispel the notion of a curse associated with his earlier, more flamboyant persona. After leaving wrestling, Kenneth Johnson earned advanced degrees, became an ordained minister, and built a life far removed from the ring, though the Slick persona never fully faded. He returned for memorable cameos, dancing at WrestleMania 23, officiating a Raw 1000 wedding, and inducting Big Boss Man into the Hall of Fame. However, even this later involvement was not without its shadows, as Johnson was named as part of a class action lawsuit against the company in 2016, alleging that wrestlers had incurred traumatic brain injuries during their tenures, a lawsuit that was ultimately dismissed. Looking back at the careers of those managed by Slick during his Doctor of Style era, a compelling, if unsettling, narrative emerges. A collection of undeniably talented individuals, many with imposing physiques and captivating personas, who, under his guidance, largely failed to achieve championship success and, in some cases, seemed to encounter misfortune both inside and outside the ring. The Big Boss Man's stalled trajectory and early untimely passing, the one-man gang's transformation and later hardships, the Iron Sheik's career-derailing incident, Butch Reed's missed opportunity, Hercules' premature passing, Kamala's financial struggles, Rick Martel's mid-card ceiling, the Warlord's fading career, and Power and Glory's ultimately underwhelming run, the evidence, while circumstantial, is certainly intriguing. Was Slick truly a curse? It's a question that lingers in the annals of wrestling history, a shadowy what-if that adds another layer of intrigue to the colorful tapestry of the late 1980s and early 1990s wrestling landscape. Whether a genuine jinx or merely a confluence of creative decisions and unforeseen circumstances, the pattern is undeniable. The wrestlers managed by Slick often seem to be afflicted by a strange form of professional paralysis, their championship aspirations perpetually out of reach. Perhaps it was simply the rub of being associated with a manager whose character, for all its flair, was ultimately designed to serve as a foil, a stepping stone for the babyface heroes. Or perhaps, just perhaps, there was something more to it, a subtle, almost supernatural force at play that cast a shadow over the careers of those who dared to dance to Slick's tune. The legacy of Slick remains a fascinating paradox. A manager who exuded success and style, yet whose clients so often found themselves on the wrong side of wrestling fate. The question, like a haunting echo from the past, remains: was Slick the kiss of death? The evidence, as we have seen, is certainly compelling.